my guys, welcome to the 9th annual mid-year book freakout tag on this channel. So if you guys are unaware, if you're a little bit new here, the mid-year book freakout tag is the first video that I ever posted on this YouTube channel at around the same time in 2017. So every year I make, once again, the mid-year book freakout tag, just because this is like, obviously it's a seasonal video and this is the appropriate time of year to post it, but also as a little celebration and acknowledgement of my booktube birthday, my booktube anniversary, because we've now been here 8 years, which is a really long time. I'm a booktube veteran at this point, which is crazy to me because I still feel like a baby. But if you guys are unfamiliar with what the mid-year freakout book tag is as a whole, it is a book tag that has 13 questions that prompt you to talk about some of the books that you've read so far this year and some of the books that you are looking forward to reading in the second half of the year. I'm pretty sure that the original video doesn't exist anymore. It was created by Chami many years ago. If I can find it, I will link it. But regardless, I will put the 13 questions for this tag in my description box for you guys as well. I have 13 questions for this tag. I do believe that the original tag was a little bit longer, but I think I took a couple of questions out, so now I just use 13 questions for the tag. I can't even remember what they were, but I know that they were not applicable to me at the time. So getting into the questions, question number 1 is, what is the best book you've read so far in 2025? And I've actually had quite a few 5-star reads for this point in the year. I think I've had more at this point this year than I had at this point last year. I've had pretty much at least one per month, I think. But I think my favorite of them all is Heavenly Bodies by Amani Eriyu. So this one is a fantasy romance that I read for one of my vlog projects this year, which was the Romantasy Rundown, where I read the first 12 months of Fairy Loot's Romantasy subscription to judge whether I've fallen out of love with the Romantasy genre or whether it is something that I still enjoy. And the results of that experiment were more positive than negative, but there were hits and misses within that series. And the biggest hit by far, my only 5-star, was Heavenly Bodies. So this one is following a girl whose parents, her entire family, have been murdered. She is from a kingdom of night, and this series is set in this world that is very celestial in origin. It references like the stars, the moon, the celestial bodies, but also like the zodiac. And she is from this like night kingdom, and a star has risen and like killed her family and taken over her kingdom. After the death of her family, she is taken to the kingdom of light, which is actually an enemy kingdom to her home kingdom. And the king there offers her the opportunity to get revenge on the person who killed her family by training to become the person that can take him down, because there is a prophecy in this world that she will fall in love with a star. Yeah, she will fall for a star, but it will kill them both, which is actually the thing that prompted the star to come and kill her family anyway, trying to get the jump on her before she had the opportunity to kill him. So to do this, she has to train with the king's son, who is the prince of the light kingdom, and she automatically assumes that he is her enemy because his father is her enemy and their kingdoms have been at war for a long time. But throughout the course of this book, she finds out that maybe that is not the case. So there are many reasons why I love this book. It has a rich fantasy world, which I thought, because going into this I was like, okay, a celestial world, a celestial magic system, that is going to be so gimmicky and so cheesy. But Amani Eriyu actually made it work in a way that made this world feel plausible. The atmosphere was great. It felt like 3D, fully fleshed out, which is 100% key for me in a fantasy world. It also had this really compelling slow burn romance, which if you know me, I love a slow burn, which all kind of very slowly built into this like culmination of plot and characters with some plot twists that I didn't necessarily see coming. So I went into this one really hoping I was going to enjoy it because I'd heard really good reviews and people with a similar taste to me in romantasy really liked it. But I was definitely thrilled when I ended up loving it, because a lot of times when it comes to hyped books recently, I'm not really seeing the hype, but I'm glad that I did in this instance. Question number 2 is the best sequel that you've read so far in 2025. And I have tried not to repeat answers, like use the same books or series for different questions for this video. This series, however, is going to be recurring throughout this tag, and I actually couldn't help it because the best sequel that I've read so far in 2025 is Valor by John Gwynne. For Catch Up Book Club, which is my epic fantasy read-along book club, we are currently reading The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne. I know you want to sleep, baby, but I have to make this video. I'll be quiet afterwards, I promise. So throughout 2025, we are going to be reading The Faithful and the Fallen, and also is it The Blood and Bone Saga by John Gwynne, both of his series that are set in the Banished Lands. And this one is set in a world where a war between men and giants forms like the mythology, the history, and the lore of the world. However, at the point that we start the story, it's been hundreds of years since this has happened, and many people do just think that the giants and the magic of the world are lore and myth. However, there is a prophecy that originates from the time of giants when they were a formidable presence in the land that says that there are going to be two avatars that rise. One is the bright star, one is the black sun. These are going to be avatars for the two gods in the world, and the entire world is going to split and unite behind one of them. So throughout this series, which is a multi-perspective series, we are following a group of different characters. One is the black sun, one is the bright star. However, they, for the most part, don't have a clue that they are these figures, and we also don't know which one is which and who is going to fulfill these pivotal roles in the prophecy. So we start the series in peacetime, getting to know our characters as like things are stirring under the surface before things kind of start to culminate towards the end of book one, which throws the world into turmoil, which we have to resolve throughout the course of the series. So book one I did really enjoy, but it felt very introductory. Think book one of Game of Thrones. The plot only really starts at the end, and it's the same for the first book in this series, Malice. However, going into book two, I thought was an excellent follow-up to the first book, where we built upon the foundation that we had laid in book one. And the thing about this series as well is that it has the level of complexity and intricacy and ruthlessness as things like Game of Thrones, but with a writing style and a focus on character that builds a lot more emotional attachment for me than I had when I read, for example, the Game of Thrones series. When I went into Valor with a good strong foundation from Malice, I really sunk into this, got into the story, continued to build relationships with the characters while the plot was starting to develop a little bit more. And with every book in this world as well, it gets a little bit more fantastical because the giants and the magic come more to the forefront as the plot kind of starts snowballing. And I feel like John Gwynne has created a really rich world here as well, which I appreciate. Question number 3 is a new release that I haven't read yet, but I want to. Honestly, I am not the best at keeping on top of my anticipated releases. I keep saying that I'm going to do, or keep thinking, should I say, that I'm going to make regular vlogs where I read like 3 of my anticipated releases so I actually keep on top of them, and it never happens. I never have time to do so, so I have tons. But for this answer specifically, I've gone with the most recent one that I've picked up, which is Silverborn, The Mystery of Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townsend. I have been waiting my entire life for this book, and I'm so excited that it is finally in my hands. So if you guys don't know what this is actually a middle grade series, and it is one of my favorite series of all time. It is one of those series that transcends demographic. Like, this is for children, and it's fine for children, but if you read it as an adult, there is also so much for you to explore and enjoy about this series as well. But essentially, we are following a young girl called Morrigan Crow, and on the eve of her, I can't remember if it's her like 10th, 11th or 12th birthday, but she's destined to die because she's a cursed child. So they're having this bidding day in her town where influential figures come and like bid on children to become their apprentices in the future. And Morrigan Crow is expecting nothing from this because she's a cursed child and she's going to die. So she's not going to live long enough to be an apprentice, and everything bad that happens in this town is blamed on her anyway, so nobody would ever want her to work for them. However, she does receive a bid from a mysterious benefactor called Jupiter North, who picks her up and sweeps her away to the magical city of Nevermore, and he enrolls her in a series of trials to join Woonsock, which is the Wondrous Society, which is essentially a like magic school that trains children, like gifted children, across all of these different disciplines. My favorite thing about this this series is the world building. This is a very transportative series. It reminds me of like good solid, you know, like middle grade series that we read when we were kids, where you feel like if you could only find the door to Nevermore, then you could go there yourself. That's how well Jessica Townsend has built this world to feel like it is a fully fleshed out 3D location that you could visit if only you could find the access to it yourself, which for me is the mark of a really good middle grade series, when you can make this imaginary world full of whimsy and possibility feel like it is a real accessible location. 10 out of 10, no notes. I would like to reread the rest of the series before I get into this one though, because this is a book that was supposed to be released in like 2019 or 2020, so it's been a long time coming, and I would really like to refresh myself on the first 3 books before I jump into this one. And honestly, I would love to revisit The Magic of Nevermore. Question number 4 is my most anticipated release for the second half of the year, and this is 100% The Strength of the Few by James Islington, which is the sequel to my favorite book of 2024, which was The Will of the Many. So this one is for fans of Brandon Sanderson, for fans of Red Rising, for fans of Nevernight by Jay Kristoff, which are 3 of, well, Brandon Sanderson isn't a series. Some of Brandon Sanderson's series are my favorite series of all time, and so is Red Rising and Nevernight. So this is just a culmination of everything I love, and honestly, The Will of the Many is one of the best books I've read probably my entire life. It just had so many things that I love about it. But essentially, it is set in this world where there is a country that uses this magic system that's based on a pyramid scheme, and they are conquering the rest of the countries around them. And one of the countries that they have conquered is the one where our main character Viz is from. So after the death of all of his family, after his country became part of this system, he decided that he would never ever have anything to do with this pyramid scheme magic system. He doesn't want to contribute to it. He doesn't want to receive anything from it. He just wants to live his life in a place far away from this where it has nothing to do with him. This is very difficult in this world because everyone is required to contribute, but he has been saving money to try and like escape somehow to earn some kind of future for himself that he would be happy with. And while he is on a quest for this, he is approached by this man called Ulkisko, who is quite high up in this pyramid. I think he's on like the 4th or 5th tier out of 7 or 8. So he's quite a powerful man in society, and he asks Viz to infiltrate this academy where the children of the best go to learn and to secure high positions within the government, within military. And the reason why Ulkisko wants Viz to infiltrate is, one, because he thinks the guy who runs the academy is brewing something nefarious. He is the leader of the religion element of the world. It's split into like the 3 areas of the country, of the governance of the country are split into 3 sections. One is religion, one is military. I think the other one is like knowledge or something, or maybe like politics. But the guy who runs the academy is the head of religion, and Ulkisko, who is part like high up in the military sector, thinks that this guy is trying to influence the country to take power away from military, which he obviously doesn't want. But he also thinks that this guy is responsible for the death of his brother. It was ruled, I think, a suicide or an accident, but he's convinced that this guy had something to do with it. So see, he is sending Viz in to gain all of this information on what this guy is actually up to and discover the secrets of the academy. The world building in this is excellent. The pacing, amazing. The way that James Islington like drip feeds you like little bits of the world. So the world is constantly expanding. It never gets confusing. It never gets too much because of the writing style. The plot twists are aplenty. The ending was fire. I love the characters. 5 stars. Once again, 10 out of 10, no notes. Like absolutely no notes. And I am so hoping that The Strength of the Few is a worthy follow-up to The Will of the Many. Question number 5 is my biggest disappointment. And this was difficult because biggest disappointment is not the same as the worst book that you read in the year, because for me, a biggest disappointment implies that there were some sort of like preconceived notions or expectations surrounding the book when you went into it for you to be disappointed. So for this one, I've gone with a 3-star read. I wanted to love it, but I did know there was a chance that I would not, and sadly it fell into the would not category, but that is The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. So the reason why I wanted to enjoy this is because for the last round of Catch Up Book Club last year and into 2023, we read Joe Abercrombie's first Law series, and there were elements of the series that I really loved. I really liked the first trilogy and the last trilogy, but I didn't like any of the standalones, so I wanted to try something else from Joe Abercrombie to see whether he was an author that I would continue to trust try, or whether he's just not for me. So I knew that there was kind of a 50-50% chance that I would love this or I would really not like it. And while I didn't hate it, I think I have decided at this point that Joe Abercrombie is not an author for me. So this one is a multicast grimdark fantasy set in a version of like historical Europe, and it's following a priest who is tasked with escorting an heir to the throne. So he has to travel across countries with her, and they are traveling with this congregation of like demons and devils which have been assembled by the Pope. So you have a vampire, a werewolf, there's a sorcerer, an immortal knight, and this chaotic cast of characters have to work together to transport this girl to the throne whilst simultaneously driving this priest insane. So it is like a found family story. It's a quest story. They're on a mission. Obstacles are thrown in their path as they go. Ultimately though, I just don't really love Joe Abercrombie's humor. Sometimes it works for me, more often than not it doesn't. This is a book with quite a large cast of characters, but also quite a fast-paced plot. And I found that I wasn't super grounded in the story before it began, which is a common complaint that I have with Joe Abercrombie's standalones. I feel like the introductions are too fast before we're getting into the action. So I have to, every time somebody's mentioned, I have to reacquaint myself with who they are for the first half of the book, and I'm concentrating so hard on remembering who everybody is while we're having these fast-paced fight scenes that I'm not actually paying attention to what's going on. So then when I do know who all the characters are, I'm lost in the plot. It was also just a little bit too action heavy for me. Despite that, by the time I got to the end of the book, I was feeling a little bit more connected to the characters, and I was kind of sad to say goodbye to them. But during the actual process of reading, I was having a terrible time. So sadly, The Devils was not for me, and I don't think Joe Abercrombie is. But if you have read The First Law World and you liked it, I would say this is like same old from Joe Abercrombie. So if you're a First Law fan, you're going to love The Devils, especially if you like Best Served Cold, which was actually my least favorite full-length installment in the First Law World. Question number 6 is my biggest surprise, and we've actually had quite a few of these throughout the year, because the blessing of Shelve It or Scrap It is that it is forcing me to read books that have been on my shelves for a really long time, especially ones that have come in subscription boxes that I have no prior knowledge of when they arrive, and I might feel like they're not for me, but then I try them out and I end up loving them. And that was definitely the case with The Whispering Dark by Kelly Andrew. So this came in on Illumicrate years ago. It's from October 2022, and it is one that sounded promising, but aside from that, like, I hadn't really heard anybody talk about it. I didn't really know what to expect. I've never read anything from this author before or heard of this author before. So when I picked it up, I went in with absolutely no preconceptions, assuming that it was actually probably going to be pretty mid, because I don't hear a lot of people talking about it, and I ended up really enjoying it actually. This one is like a gothic-y dark academia story following a deaf main character who is enrolled into this university where they're teaching people to slip between parallel worlds. So one of the people that she meets at this university is somebody who actually knows who she is, and he is this like pretentious, grumpy, moody guy, and they seem to really get off on the wrong foot, and she has absolutely no idea why. So she is constantly trying to make it up to him while he is constantly trying to keep his distance, because he has been warned to stay away from her because of her particular powers and the particular circumstances that he's in, although she has no idea that they're connected or what's going on kind of like behind the scenes. But when people at the university, like students at the university, start to go missing, they have to team up to get to the bottom of what's going on. So one of the things that I really liked about this was the romance that we have going through here, because we do. One of my favorite tropes, actually my favorite romance trope, is the he fell first trope. It's where you find out that the love interest has always known the main character or has always been interested in or aware of them without the main character knowing or having any clue that this was happening. And it's the longing for me, it's the pining, and this book in particular was so full of pining. It definitely had some plot holes and some flaws and bits where you could say, well, actually it doesn't make sense that this would happen, but combined with like the gothic-y atmosphere of it, this like romance full of longing and pining, and like a magical university setting, it was a win for me. I'm only sad that it's a standalone, because I would have liked more from this. So number 7 is who is a new favorite author. I don't think this year I have read multiple books by an author that I haven't read from before outside of like John Gwynne in a way where I would now consider them to be like an auto-buy author for me or anything. But there was an author that I tried for the first time very recently that I love, loved, and now I would be so open to picking up more from them, and that is Frida McFadden. So I read The Boyfriend. I listened to this on audio and I was so blown away by the plot twist in here. I always say when I start a thriller that the problem with me and thrillers, I usually don't rate them very highly because I go in with unrealistic expectations. I expect them to have best, most grandest plot twist in the entire world, and not all thrillers do. Like, that is not the purpose of all thrillers. Some are not like twist reliant, and some are just not meant to be that deep, you know? But I always expect, because that is what a thriller is to me, it is compelling, shocking, and twisty. So I went into this, and for the longest time throughout this book, I was like, okay, this is playing out exactly the way I expected it to based on the synopsis. So there has to be another twist, right? There has to be a twist in here. And I waited and I waited and I waited, and eventually I was not disappointed. Now, bear in mind, I'm not a thriller reader, so my reviews on thrillers are not especially relevant. I would not recommend that you follow my recommendations on thrillers. They're really not that deep for me. I just want a fun time. I want to be compelled. I want to be shocked. And Frida McFadden delivered that to the letter, even though absolutely nothing surprising was happening throughout the first 75% of this book. I was still riveted, like, okay, but there's got to be more here. Okay, so like where are we going now? And it was 100% worth it. So this one in particular follows a woman who has been struggling to find the one. She wants to settle down, get married, but dating in New York City is not easy. So one day she meets this perfect man and she just thinks that he must be too good to be true. Then in the background of this, her friend is murdered and the police have no idea who did it, but they do know there is a killer on the loose who is dating women before he kills them. And as the book goes on, the main character starts to have some suspicions about her new boyfriend. So I know that there's a lot of polarizing opinions on Frida McFadden, but I had such a good time with this book, and because thrillers aren't that deep for me, I would absolutely be open to reading from Frida McFadden in the future. Question number 8 is, who is your new book boyfriend? My gut is telling me to say Enzo from Heavenly Bodies. I'm trying not to repeat, but I do want to give an honorable mention to Enzo because he really is that guy. He falls into the category of people who the main character assumes is awful, and then it turns out that he's actually not that bad a guy. Like, that is something consistently in fantasy romance that I really like, when you're assuming that the love interest is a terrible person who's done terrible things, and then the main character gets to know them and it's actually not the case. I am a sucker for that. But because we have already used Heavenly Bodies, I am going to go with Garrett from The Deal, which is a surprise for me because this is a hockey romance, incredibly hyped series. But I thought, like, oh, like hockey players, they don't do it for me. That's not my vibe. New adult university romance, I don't know, kind of old now, maybe outdated. I loved this. I kind of expected it to be angsty and problematic as well because of the time that it was published. Most of the topics in here it deals with incredibly well. But this is essentially following a girl who wants to date this guy. I don't know if he's a hockey player, he might be a football player. The main male character, Garrett, is failing one of his classes that she is like doing really, really well in. So he offers to fake date her because he knows that if this guy that she likes sees her around with like another guy, he's going to start to pay attention to her because of the status that the being on the hockey team gives Garrett. Like, and she's dating a high status guy, makes her more like interested. In exchange, all he wants is for her to tutor him. So they are fake dating, and she just thinks he's this like complete bonehead hockey player jock. But as they go through the process of fake dating and she's also tutoring him, they start to grow a little bit closer. Once again, the thing that I really like about Garrett actually is that he is way more into the main character than she is into him, and I think that that is, once again, like with Heavenly Bodies, and also the fact that I like the he falls first trope is a real sweet spot for me. Like, when you know that the male main character is falling before the female one and he doesn't really know what to do about it. I'm a sucker for that. Question number 9 is, who is my new favorite character? And this was hard because I was looking through what I'd read and I was like, I like a lot of characters, but there's none I feel that I've read recently that I'm really like, yes, like I am ride or die for you. Like, you would be my bestie. So for this one, I am going to be going with a character who is not necessarily my favorite on an emotional level, but is my favorite on an interest level. Like, they're a very interesting character and I'm very interested in their story arc. And and this is just the closest one that was to me because it is coming up for the next question, but it is Viridius from the Faithful and the Fallen series. The thing that I really love about Viridius is that he is a character that has a lot of loyalty, and his role in the first book, Malice, is that he is traveling with this other guy called Nether. Like, his family have taken him to Nether's family and asked them to train him, to give him some experience being a man, being a warrior, and Viridius and Nether grow very, very close very quickly and become almost like brothers, and he has such immense loyalty to Nether, but he's also like not blind. Like, he's clever and he can see some of the things going on around him, and for the longest time throughout this series you are trying to figure out whether he is ultimately going to follow his head or his heart, and he is keeping you on your toes while you're kind of waiting for him to make this decision. So his character is really interesting to me because it has the most potential, because you really just don't know which way he's going to fall ultimately. That level of like complex emotion plus the fact that you don't know which way he's gonna go keeps me gripped throughout his entire character arc. Question number 10 is a book that made you cry. I do have room for this as well. This is not the only book in this series that made me cry. I have cried at every single book in The Faithful and the Fallen so far. The first two books though, I just shed a couple of tears. This one I ugly cried in, and I have a vlog to prove it. Like I said, one of Jungwin's strengths throughout this series is building emotional attachment to those characters as the plot is developing, and that really came to a head in this one. I was sad at this book for a lot of reasons, but one thing in particular was extremely upsetting for me. On the flip side of that, question 11 is a book that made you happy. I've read a couple of like cute YA contemporary romances this year, but like the most recent one was Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute by Talia Hibbert. I'm already a big fan of Talia Hibbert because the Brown Sisters series is one of my favorite romance series, and I did want to read this because like I said, I like Talia Hibbert, but because it's YA romance, I was unsure and I didn't expect to have the same level of attachment as I do with the Brown Sisters, which to be fair, I don't, but I still gave this 4 stars and really enjoyed it. I love Talia Hibbert's writing style and her sense of humor. She is a British author, and I just feel, I have nothing to base this on, but based on her writing, I feel like she's a fan of the Confessions of Georgia Nicholson series, which was my favorite series when I was a teenager, and I feel like I can see it in her books, which just makes me so happy because those books were so funny and I loved them so much. And I feel like I'm getting a little bit of that as an adult through Talia Hibbert. I also think in this instance in particular, while I wasn't going to root for it as hard, or I assumed I wouldn't root for it as hard as I would for like an adult romance, this was still really cute. It was really sweet, and it was a really nice, easy, uplifting romance that had some really good representation in here as well, actually, because our main male character, Bradley, does have OCD, and I really liked that this was a part of the story, like a key part of his character and his everyday life, but it wasn't the only thing about him, and this wasn't a book about OCD, but I feel like it did a very good job of representing somebody who lives with OCD, and Talia Hibbert herself does actually have OCD, so it is a own voices representation there as well. But in terms of the plot, if you want to pick this up, you can go into it just knowing like it's a cute contemporary young adult romance, and that's fine, but it is following these two characters, Celine and Bradley. They were best friends, but I think going into high school, Bradley had a little bit of a glow up. He made Celine feel like she was too weird and quirky for him because she has a TikTok about like conspiracy theories and stuff, and so she feels like he left her behind to be popular. So they've pretty much been enemies since then, but then they both sign up to this like survival program to earn a scholarship, and they decide that the best thing for them to do would be to team up to give them the best chance of actually winning the scholarship for themselves. The format of the thing that they have to do is like they're going out into the wilderness and they have to do like orienteering and scavenger hunts and that kind of thing while they're rekindling their friendship, and also maybe it's blossoming into something a little bit more as well. Question number 12 is, what is the most beautiful book that you have received this year? The actual answer for this, the most beautiful book I have received this year, is Heavenly Bodies. This was the Fairy Loot Romantasy book for December, but I only unboxed my boxes like the month after, so I opened this one in January. I love the redesigned cover. My favorite thing is the naked hardcover on this one, but then I do also love the end papers. Everything about this I just think is absolutely stunning. But because I have mentioned this, I brought a couple more contenders. One of which is the Illumicrate edition of Watermoon, which once again is a full recover. I love the art style on the entirety of this. I love that the pages are like a wraparound continuation of the cover design. I love the art style on the end papers. I love a printed naked hardcover. It's my favorite thing. And then the other one is a more recent one. This one is the April Fairy Loot Romantasy, and it is Windweaver by Julie Johnson. Once again, a complete recover. I think that this as a whole package is stunning. Like, the design of this is so cohesive and just looks so nice with the combination of the copper and the beige, which carries through into a warmer, more fiery theme underneath as well. And then finally, the last question, question 13, is what books do you need to read by the end of the year? And my answer every single year is all of them. All of the books in the stacks for sure. But I did recently post a video on my channel, which is a list of series that I would like to continue on with. So I've read book one at least a year ago, and I need to reread book one to continue on with the series because I enjoyed book one enough that I want to have that experience of like reading it again before I move on to the series. And I want to make it a priority to do so, reading like one book a month to chip away at some of these series instead of constantly starting things and leaving them open and like holding myself accountable a little bit. One of the main ones that I do want to get to this year is the Empire of the Vampire trilogy by J. Kristoff. So I've already read book one. I haven't read book two yet, and book three I think is released in November. It's another one of my anticipated releases because Nevernight by J. Kristoff is one of my favorite series of all time. But this one is more of a Name of the Wind style book, following a guy called Gabriel, who is the last of the Silver Saints, who are these legendary vampire hunters. So this is told in 3 different timelines. The present timeline is that Gabriel has been caught by the vampires and he is being asked to tell his life story before his execution. So he eventually agrees and he starts telling his story from 2 different points. One of them is like his early life and how he became a Silver Saint, and then the second one is when he was on the greatest, like most defining mission of his career, when he was hunting down the Holy Grail, which is this very important artifact for the vampires. And then I just had one more that I definitely would like to get to this year, which is Rebel Witch by Kristen Cicerelli, which is the sequel to The Crimson Moth. So I've ordered the Fairy Loot edition of this. This is also one of my most anticipated releases of the year, but I ordered the Fairy Loot edition, which is only going to be released, like it's only going to be delivered in January or February next year. Like a year after release. So I'm hoping to get this on Libby, like when the hype's died down a little bit and the hold queue isn't as long. I'll get it on Libby, or I'll look out for it as a 99p ebook or something, because I really just don't want to get myself a physical copy, knowing that I've paid for like a Fairy Loot special edition that I will get eventually. So I am hoping to pick up an ebook of this in the future. If you don't know what The Crimson Moth is, it's a romantasy, and it is set in a world where witches used to rule, and very, very recently they have been overthrown by the witch hunters. And our main character, Rune, was the granddaughter of a witch, and she had to turn her grandmother over to save her life. She did it like with her grandmother's consent. It was her grandmother's idea, and at that point she didn't know that she was a witch, but since then she has become this vigilante figure called the Crimson Moth, who is using her witchcraft, like her abilities, to save witches from execution. And she is on the hunt for an influential witch called Seraphina, who was friends with her grandmother and also friends with the royal family. But when she finds Seraphina, the witch hunters have just about beat her to it. So she then starts fake dating the leader of the witch hunters, Gideon, to try and get information on Seraphina's whereabouts so that she can release her. On the flip side of this, Gideon is hunting the Crimson Moth, and he's been tipped off by his friend that maybe Rune, who is his brother's best friend, could be the person that they're looking for. So he starts fake dating her to get closer to her, to figure out if she is this vigilante figure. So that was the mid-year book freakout tag, and we're now approaching, I'm entering into my 9th year on BookTube, which is crazy. I just want to take this time, as always, to let you guys know that I'm so grateful for you. If you support me on YouTube, just if you watch my videos, you don't even have to interact, and I'm just so grateful that you are here and have helped to contribute to the last 8 years on this platform. I love that I get to do this every day, honestly, and sometimes, I mean, regularly, I'm a little bit shocked that this is my life, but I am extremely grateful for it, and I'm incredibly grateful for you guys. So thank you for being here and continuing to be here and continuing to show up time and time again. Down in my comments this time, I would like you to answer one of the mid-year book freakout tag questions for me, and I would like to know, what is your favorite new author that you've read this year. So mine was Freida McFadden. Let me know what your guys' answer is down in the comments. And if you guys would like to let me know that you were here but you don't feel like you have anything to say, then please go ahead and leave me a vampire emoji for Empire of the Vampire. But aside from that, guys, please don't forget to like this video if you liked it and subscribe if you wanna. If you head into my description box, you'll find a link to my Goodreads, my Instagram, and my Patreon if you would like to follow me on any of those. But that's it from me today, guys. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you will go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.